Aloha, beautiful fam. Bliss here again. Just going to keep love streaming, keep sharing the transmissions that are coming through right now to share with our human family as we're going through this great Why do we have a poor connection? No, we don't. Facebook just cut us out there for a moment, but we are going to keep going. We're supercharging these lines. If you think this love stream is going to be inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting. And we're just shifting the field so that these sharings go out to as many of our human family as possible. So what we are sharing about right now, and we're just going to keep bringing these love streams through to help our human family consider something outside of the box that is going on right now. And so the last love stream that I shared today, and I will add the link in the description box after I put the links for two of the previous transmissions, because I am calling forth our human family and making the invitations and the invocations for us to rise and to really understand what that means right now. So there are a lot of people who have a very awakened consciousness that we are in a game, we're in a play, that it's falling apart in every way. That all the shadow frequencies are being revealed, all the things that happen beneath the surface are coming to the surface, and that is a reflection of us doing the clearing inside of ourselves. And each one of us is 100% responsible for this transformation that is occurring in human consciousness. I read something that Richard Rudd wrote, and he said that business was the stage for the expansion of human consciousness. And because business is falling apart, nature is taking the stage inside of our human consciousness. And so we can participate, and there's that 100th monkey principle where just one extra person gets it, and whammo, the 60th city ignites in multiple beings, and it's the end of the world as we know it. So we've been going through phases and stages of that, and we're just going to keep sharing to invite inspiration and contemplation of next steps. So there's a lot of people who are lit up and they're ready for like the big transformation, and they're kind of like, stuck in that no man's land, where it's like they've released everything from the past, released old structures, released attachment, and still it's kind of like hovering in this place of borders, boundaries, taxes, passports, insurance, license plates, driver's licenses, birth certificates, all these things that give consent to the system that is not only crashing but crashed. So we are here to help our human family to understand this is not about a war against anything outside of us. It's for us to understand the mechanics of how to completely let go. Hang on, I gotta get the battery going on the phone. Good stuff. Okay, so yeah, these transmissions are to help our entire human family, whatever bloodline you're in, whatever role someone has played in the play, is irrelevant to me. What is relevant to me is to share the codes of the awakening of the DNA and how to participate, how to be active in the process. We can do yoga, we can meditate, we can learn Qigong, we can study the ancient techniques that have been around forever. If this love stream is inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting, and I'm just going to keep bringing them forward. So, okay. So we can participate in the activation of our DNA now. There is so much liberated consciousness in the human collective, and the planetary body is just right there waiting for us to participate in this great shift and change. And so a lot of humans on the planet who live in the Western civilizations on the planet are still inside of these structures called the Matrix. And so in my last transmission, what I shared was, because it is a collective consent reality, once we have awakened to a certain point, just like Neo in the Matrix, we realize it is for us to remove our consent from the reality. Not because we're warring with anyone, not because we disregard the value of the systems, but because we understand that the systems are the very thing that continue to hold the consciousness in a state of, well, the guidance is saying duality and kind of that no man's land for the big shift and change and transformation. So bless Richard Rudd, because he brought through this book on the 64 star tetrahedron, which follows the 64 codons in the human DNA of the I Ching. And so we use it a lot as a reference, and simultaneously this transmission in October decoded the entire Metatronic blueprint days before Facebook changed its name to Meta, in an online series that we did with the pod called The Princess Lines. And the Princess Lines went in super deep and basically put a torch to the entire metaverse. So when Facebook came out and changed their name to Meta, it was very interesting timing and alignment. We are a messenger. So if we go into human design and human genetics for a moment, in human design, which was brought through by Ra Aru, he gave us the codes to understand the roles we were playing in a play. I heard him interviewed before he passed, and he said human design was a gift to assist us so that we didn't tear each other apart as the play was coming to an end. And that's paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. So he was fully aware that the play was coming to an end. And in human design, there's different profiles. One of those profiles is called a 6-3. And the 6-3 walks in this world, not of it. The 6-3's consciousness is from beyond this design. So those who have the 6-3 as their profile are literally accessing consciousness from beyond this container. And the 6-3s are called the role model martyrs for a reason, because they're bringing a new consciousness inside of a container that is not familiar with that consciousness. It doesn't know it. So when the 6-3s first start bringing the information in the fictional fiction, the consciousness is resistant to it. Just the same way as the imaginal cells begin to activate in the caterpillar, what the imaginal cells actually do is they start to break down the entire system of the caterpillar, returning the caterpillar to plasma. So you can imagine that the immune system of the caterpillar resists the imaginal cells in the beginning. Ultimately, the whole system begins to slow down. This is how nature does her thing. And so she brings in a cataclysm or a virus or a whatever to slow things down before the shift. And so the 6-3s are like the imaginal cells. And there's other beings who hold these codes too, but the 6-3s are actually the ones who have the coordinates from beyond this container. And in the human design, it said that the 6-3 influence the few who influence the many. And that is starting to shift. Why? Because the consciousness coming in 2027, even though time isn't real and doesn't exist and it's already here, is the consciousness that is not only fully ready to receive what the 6-3s bring, the consciousness coming in 2027 is the ones informing the 6-3s right now how to change the system to welcome in the new consciousness. So that's what these transmissions are now. If this love stream is inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting. So each one of us can participate, can understand. There's no fear of authority outside of ourselves. And this is how we dissolve the systems in totality. So as we shared in the past love stream, we're in a consent reality. And so collective consent, conscious or unconscious, and most of it was unconscious, we will say, was used to create the monarch's reality. And it's interesting that they chose the name monarch, but anyways. So the old fictional fiction was created on consent. And most humans in the fictional fiction have been participating unconsciously, giving their consent, which starts with the birth certificate when someone leaves the hospital. We're just going to touch on things right now. Lots of people listening probably know these things, and many people may not. But the point being is those systems that are falling away are systems that were sustained through brutality and force. That's why they had law enforcement. That's why they had armies, because it was a prison planet military state, and that has all dissolved away. And so we're kind of informing, because we work the grids and ley lines for many miracle years to assist to awaken the human consciousness, so we can speak about these things with authority, because we've been inside of the systems. We were sought out by the people running those systems, and we saw what was going on behind the scenes, and it's not pretty at all. So what we used to say when we started being sought out by the big money families and those who were trying to create the new world order on the planet, and once again, there's no good, bad, right, wrong. We're not creating any evil here. We're just saying everyone was doing a great job of playing their role in the play. And some of us came to bring a message with authority. That message is nature's message, that she's done with this stage and she's done with this play. And so many of us hold these codes to bring information for our entire family. Once again, it doesn't matter what bloodline someone is in, what role they have played, what color they are, what size they are, what shape they are. That is irrelevant. This message is for everyone in our entire human family. So if this LoveStream is inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting. So in my own journey into some of the biggest, most powerful families on the planet, who sought me out for information, because those systems knew who we were through our birth certificates and what role we played. And this role was the oracle, which can bring in new information. So what I saw in the old systems was a bloodbath going on, and it was a bloodbath based on greed and force and a struggle to sustain what was called power. But that was not power, because David Hawkins wrote a book called Power versus Love, or Power versus Force. And he showed on a vibratory scale that force is very low and power is very high. So they're very two different things. We call these power structures on the planet, but they're not power structures at all. They're structures of force, because they were sustained through military. They were sustained through force and brutality. And that's what's falling apart on every level as the courage of the human heart is rising. And we're all collectively dissolving the nightmare that we consciously or unconsciously created together. And so once again, there's no enemy here. This transmission is for every single being on the planet equal. It's just the codes to understand that that play has come to an end. And this is the signal from nature to assist us to make the great transformation together. So guidance is flashing a little piece right now, and so we'll just tune in how to wind that in. Okay, we didn't think we were going to go here right now, but we're just bringing through a transmission. If this LoveStream is inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting. In September of 2018, I had spent several years inside of the families on the planet that were in control of the planet, that were losing control of the planet, that were passing the inheritance on to their bloodlines to control the planet, to create the new world order, and so on. Just roles in the play. No good, bad, right, wrong. And when I was on many phone calls with signatories of very big families. I met the children of the biggest nuclear arms dealers on the planet, and so on. Why was I taken into all those realms? because this being, like many other beings, has the codes to restore coherence. Coherence is key. Coherence returns our brain to a whole brain state so that the spirit can wake up inside the avatar and go, oh my gosh, I'm not this role in the play. I'm not the good guy. I'm not the bad guy. I'm not the good girl. I'm not the evil one. I'm none of it. I'm pure source consciousness in form having a human experience. And that was my role. That continues to be part of what is coming through this transmission, is to help everyone understand that nature and source consciousness, creation is benevolent. Creation is not an external authoritarian God. Creation is benevolent, and creation and nature wants all of its children to rise as one, equal, and to thrive together. So these systems that we were living in, systems of indoctrination, brutality, and force, that we all created equally, unconsciously or consciously through our egos. We will keep saying this so that we get over the projection that there is someone or something outside of us that we need to fight, that we need to figure out with the mind. There's nothing to figure out with the mind. It was all created equal, conscious or unconscious. And so the systems that are falling apart are not systems that support equal. They are systems that create a distortion in the belief that there's power of something outside of us. Like, you can't drive a vehicle unless you have it insured, and you can't drive a car unless you have a driver's license. We'll go to Hawaii and talk to the kingdom in Kauai, who is, and many people around the planet who have found the languaging to understand that that is just one fictional fiction that was created on the planet, and that we're all here to equally transcend, including those who maybe are still trying to sustain those systems. And that's one of the things I want to talk to those versions of myself in this love stream, to say that any who are continuing to play in such a way to deceive the collective consciousness, deception is a manifestation of the ego. And pick up this book again, because this is the script. If you don't know how to read this book and you're running the biggest company on the planet, good luck, because you're not going to make it. So what this book says is the 55th gene is the gene that has all the codes for the awakening of the solar plexus. In my own experience, when my solar plexus was unlocked by the hand of creation itself, my spirit was set free from the egoic blueprint, because the ego sits in the solar plexus. And the 55th gene is about the transcendence of the victimizer consciousness. The genes work like a clock. The sun goes through the genetics and activates them when a consciousness is bound to gravity and time. This transmission is here to unlock pure source consciousness. If this love stream is inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting. So what we want to share about this 55th gene is it's the transcendence of victimization consciousness, victimization consciousness. In August 8, 88th Lion Gate 2017, we stood at the pause of the Sphinx, and we liberated human consciousness by pushing the victimizer, Christ, Antichrist consciousness back through the gates of Sirius and Orion, from whence it came home to the stars on the prime directive. And so we're just sharing little pieces that might be, don't listen from the mind, just allow the transmission to come inside, and you might have epiphanies in your own physical, spiritual consciousness, putting pieces together. That is what this transmission allows and assists people to do, is just like start going like, wow, it's a whirlwind of information, and I'm having these epiphanies, and all this insight is coming in. And this transmission was inspired by someone who wrote right after I did the earlier love stream today, saying that it is now time for us to find courage in our human heart and understand there is no power outside of us running those systems. The systems are inorganic. So as we remove our consent, those systems dissolve. This is a holographic creation, and it is created and perpetuated by thought and agreement. That's all. So the 55th gene, Transcendence of Victimizer consciousness, is the integration of the polarities within ourselves from the game we were playing, from the duality consciousness. It was a stage. We all had a role in the play. Nature took away that stage. So for anyone who is still playing that game, that is polarized, that is dishonoring of one's internal wholeness, one will fade away. It actually says here in the 55th gene that the 55th gift of intimacy is the first step. So what Richard Rudd explains in the book is that intimacy means that each one of us must transcend, must call out all hidden agendas of our personal egos. That is a adamantine particle there, Miss Cosmia. We like to write those down. Our pod is great at writing down these little parts that really stand out. Each and every one of us is 100% responsible for tuning into the hidden agendas of the ego that keep us bound to gravity and time, because being bound to gravity and time is going to become more and more uncomfortable and painful. More symptoms in the body, more symptoms in the field, more things occurring in our realities that, oh my gosh, there's a hummingbird flying right in here right now. See, the field is responding right into the porch. How fantastic. We love those little hummingbirds. They're like the little news beings carrying around the real news. That human consciousness is transcending and awakening. So once again, this is for everyone in the play. Good, bad, right, wrong, bloodlines, whatever. There is when there is nothing to project on. There is just to be 100% responsible for tracking hidden agendas inside of the self, because hidden agendas come from the ego. When I was taken into the back offices of the bloodlines and the money families and the structures that were trying to assert new world order and all those things, I saw a lot of greed. I saw a lot of war. I saw a lot of battles. I saw a lot of competition. I saw a lot of force. I didn't see a lot of love. And that's why I was taken there, to help those versions of ourselves, we self, remember love. Love is coherence. So in this book, the 35th gene is the shortcut, and this is why we share coherence as key with everyone, again and again and again and again. What is coherence? Coherence means our capacity to be at oneness, to be in 0 point, to be in stillness, to collapse the polarities, to be in neutrality. So I share this a million times. Please share it with everyone. And if this LoveStream is inspiring right now, please share it. That's called gifting. The simplest way to find coherence, we have 2 hemispheres of our brain. We repeat it again and again for new people who are tuning in, and as a reminder for each and every one of us in every miracle that we are in form in our consciousness. This brain has 2 hemispheres, left and right, and they have a little bridge called the corpus callosum. And if that little bridge is not working very well, which it wasn't in the fictional fiction that we're rising from, because vibrationally the planetary energy was such that it created a dualistic experience of the brain. Just check out Carl Kalman's 9 Waves of Consciousness. He did a great job of just showing the different planetary vibrations that were coming through that created different perceptions of reality. And so we are rising up out of 8th wave, 7th wave, and lower to come into 9th wave, which is unity consciousness. And so it's rising in our brain. Our brain is coming into a state of coherence, and it's happening naturally, like it or not. And that's why a lot of cravings, a lot of addictions, a lot of things that used to make us happy, they all wear off. And then the consciousness is kind of going like, I don't know, nothing works for me anymore. Now what? And it is the miracle coordinate to understand what is happening. So we're coming into a whole brain state, and it's a very different experience of consciousness. And we have the capacity in every way to form new systems in coherence together on the planet, to participate. Back to the piece about everyone is 150% responsible for navigating the ego inside of ourselves. So if we do it consciously, those little hummingbirds, we can do it consciously or not. And if we do it consciously, we get to enjoy the ride, get to enjoy the game. If we don't do it consciously, just another virus comes along and goes, you. Go inward and look deeply inside of yourself to find the hidden agendas of the ego, whether people know that's what they're doing or not. Okay. So the 55th gene is, Richard explains, is the beginning of the true age of romance and intimacy, because we call out every hidden agenda of the ego. And as I was sharing before, what I saw when I went into the financial worlds and systems and people with an open heart, open sourcing everything I had to bring, called love, what I saw was a lot of greed and competition, meaning that those who people were trusting or not trusting to set up new systems on the planet were in a very dense vibrational state of competition. And I would just say this is not going to survive on the planet. It has to be heart-based. And there are many of us in this space who have all the right resources and capacities to do this in such a way that we can share this message collectively with our human family. We have all kinds of beings who have integrated. This is the Grail kings and queens, which is the codes within all of us. All that means is that those who have activated their Grail codes have integrated their polarities within them. That's why we talk about whole brain state. Cross the wrists, cross the ankles, clasp the hands, close the eyes, and deep breathe. When we do that, we bring the hemispheres of the brain together. We can do it 1,000,000 times a day to build that muscle. Why are we doing it? So that we can see how the ego operates inside of us with its own hidden agendas to keep us bound to gravity and time. Okay, so the 35th gene is the shortcut. Richard says, as though the gods who created this machine programmed a shortcut into the machine. If this LoveStream is inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting. Once again, we're doing a synthesis, a shortcut of human design and the gene keys to help the family take quantum leaps out of the roles in the play we have all been playing. Whether you're the Dalai Lama or the President of the United States, or you clean toilets like Jupiter ascending. It's irrelevant. All roles are equal. And those who were and maybe still are creating systems of indoctrination and force and structures to put in place. This is a very important piece of this transmission. I am calling forth the heart courageous to understand something. That there are aspects of ourselves called human family who still have ego operating inside of the self in such a way that they are compelled by the hidden agendas of the ego mechanism operating inside of them to create and to perpetuate systems of force and indoctrination. Not good, bad, right, or wrong, just a shadow frequency expression of the archetypes of the genetics. The genetics are just archetypal expressions. We can play them like an instrument based on our vibration. So because certain aspects of ourself might still be playing their guitar at a low vibration, it is for many of us now to remove our consent. Millions upon millions. I am invoking, inspiring, and inviting billions of humans on the planet to remove their consent from borders, boundaries, taxes, passports, insurance, driver's license, the motor vehicle branch, the whole structure of being forced to drive a fossil fuel car when there is free energy technologies suppressed to keep people bound to a prison planet. So who is responsible for removing their consent? This is something that this being has role modeled at every level to inspire courage to see that there is nothing and no one outside of us. How many of our light worker family who are sharing teachings on this planet have removed their consent from these structures and systems? It's the biggest question to ask, because when millions upon millions go, fuck it, I get it. It's us transcending our collective ego. We as a unified spirit of consciousness are transcending the collective ego. We're not victims opposed to an army. We are not separate from the systems. They are collective systems. And there's a lot of people I love who feel very ascended and spiritual who are still giving their consent to these systems. Maybe we could have a unified day on the planet where everyone burned their passport, their driver's license, their insurance. If you want to go back to the other video, we talk about levitating cars. They don't crash. Seems more efficient than fossil fuel cars that do crash, and lawsuits of billions of dollars that freak people out because of something called money, which isn't real, which is a middleman between us and source consciousness. So I'm just going to leave it here for today, and maybe I'll do another transmission in the miracle. And I'm super inspired to share these in a way that treats our entire human family as equal. It's all about our vibration. And when we live in love, the 35th gene is just about collapsing the polarities back to neutral. That's why, as though the gods who created this machine created a shortcut called the 35th gene, boundlessness. And all boundlessness means if you know how to read between the lines of what Richard wrote or what the I Ching said. You have to know how to read between the lines. When you read between the lines, you understand that shadow frequency and the city, the highest frequency of a gene, are not, one is not better or worse. They are equal. The game here is to collapse the polarity, cross the wrists, clasp the hands, cross the ankles, close the eyes, and deep breathe. To bring coherence when we are experiencing sensations of fear as we navigate our way through removing our consent from any and all middleman, man, created by our ego. It is our ego we are transcending. It lives inside of the human self. And as each one of us starts to place our focus on the hidden agendas of the ego, hold coherence, call the ego out. I'm sorry, I was just projecting on you. It had nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. And I am dissolving that polarized aspect of my ego. And as I do, I am in a state of neutrality, which gives me the ability to consciously remove my consent from external systems of brutality, of force, that say how I have to exist in a physical body. We are pure source consciousness. We are physical and non-physical simultaneously, creating consensus reality. So with that, this love stream is for every single human on the planet, every family, every bloodline, every politician, every system, every nurse, every doctor, every whatever. The game is the same. The game is to transcend the ego. And I am inviting support for a global platform to share these messages in such a way that it touches every human heart, to dissolve all systems of separation, so that all human life, and so that all life in this magnificent garden is seen, felt, treated, honored, revered as equal. This is the living library that we are upon. And we have the opportunity as awakened consciousness to live and love as one. And for this to happen right now, not in days, weeks, months, or years, right now. So if you're giving your consent to systems, take what resonates, throw the rest away. Just contemplate inside of the self who is making inside of you those decisions. Is it your pure source consciousness, or is it some aspect of the ego? Because the ego lives in fear. And every single one of we has the capacity to transcend that level of consciousness. And it dissolves all separation. It will dissolve all real estate. It will dissolve the monopoly board being played out in the garden that gives ownership to nature, to minerals, to the elementals. They are not owned by anyone or anything. That is a falsity. It is a false narrative and a fictional belief. And this is coming directly from the voice of nature. So we do have the opportunity to do this together. And for versions of ourselves that are still functioning from the base of the ego to perpetuate systems of ownership of nature itself, we invite we to join us now. Just come to we and say, how do I do this? How do I transcend my ego? Presidents, generals, whoever. Let's do this. Unity, grace, and bliss. We love we so much. If this love stream was inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting. Our ego will thank us. Trust me. Aloha.